small church where the pastor has to work part-time or full-time somewhere else to support his family, or maybe the church is going through something and all of a sudden they're just not able to pay their pastor anymore. What it's saying is that someone who's truly called to be a pastor isn't going to leave their post and go and chase after a paycheck somewhere else. In other words, the sheep should not have to live in a constant state of insecurity that they have a pastor who's looking for greener pastures somewhere else. The sheep should have to have a sense of security that, you know what, they have a pastor who's going to stay with them no matter what. He's committed to them. He's always going to be there for them no matter what. He's not going to leave them for a better gig. And then he says in verse 3, not lording it over those entrusted to them. The Greek here means overpower. It means to dominate. Reminds us, of course, of what Jesus said in Mark chapter 10, verse 42, when he said, you know that those who are regarded as rulers of the Gentiles lord it over them, and their high officials exercise authority over them. Not so with you. Instead, whoever wants to become great among you must be your servant, and whoever wants to be first must be the slave of all. And so Jesus is saying, listen, in my kingdom, the way up is down. He's saying, listen, greatness is not based on how many servants you have, but rather it's on how many you serve. And so he addresses the pastor's motives. Now, as we continue in verse 3, now Peter's going to address the pastor's lifestyle. The pastor's lifestyle. He says in verse 3, not lording it over those entrusted to you, but being examples to the flock. And so again, he's going from dealing with the pastor's motives, the thing that drives the pastor, to now dealing with the pastor's lifestyle. And so in effect, it's saying a pastor's lifestyle shouldn't be domineering and controlling. He shouldn't be the kind of guy that's always cracking a whip. He says rather, the pastor is to be an example to the flock. Now that word example, it's the Greek word tupos, or tupos. It's a term that literally means providing a pattern to be followed. Providing a pattern that can be copied. That's the pastor's lifestyle. And so it's saying that God's leaders are called to be examples of godly living. And of course, we see this over and over and over again throughout the New Testament. For example, the Apostle Paul in 1 Corinthians 11, verse 1 says, imitate me as I also imitate Christ. And then the Apostle Paul told Timothy in 1 Timothy chapter 4, verse 12, he said, be an example to the believers in word, in conduct, in love, in spirit, in faith, and in purity. And then in Hebrews chapter 13, verse 7, it says, remember your leaders who spoke the word of God to you, consider the outcome of their way of life, and imitate their faith. And so the pastor is the one who provides the example for you to follow, or at least he should. Now listen, church hurt is a real thing, right? I mean, there really have been people who've been hurt by an abusive, domineering pastor. Now, it doesn't mean that every pastor is abusive, but we've seen this over and over and over again. And so Peter's telling us what we need to look for in our spiritual leaders, what we need to look for in our pastors. We need to look for men who have character. We need to look for men who are worthy of being imitated. So we need to watch, how do they treat their wives? How do they treat their kids? How do they handle their personal finances? How do they handle their temper and all these different things, on and on. They need to have a lifestyle that's worthy of being patterned. A lifestyle that's worthy of being followed. He says, be examples to the flock of God.